Hello friends in McKinley Shire, how are you? It's Costa and I'm very pleased to be with you for another one of our short video series. This one is about compost. There will be one that follows shortly after this, explaining what I want to share with you around soil and the plan and the program that I've got to take soil to the next level of understanding for all of you as gardeners. But for this little video, I just want to walk you through some of my compost bins and my worm farm here, pick out a few of the classic troubleshooting areas, and then ask you to respond to me about your worm farms and compost bins. I need to know a little bit more about how you're composting, if you're composting at all, the scale at which you're doing it, and of course, most importantly, the inputs that you have on hand. What do you get access to? For example, here, I have a little bin here that I have out the front of my house. So I've got this white bucket and people bring their food scraps, you can see in there, and they drop them off. People that bring more can put them into this bigger bin, and I actually have a local caterer who brings me food scraps in scale, like volume. So you can see I'm getting 2 garbage bin fulls a week of all the offcuts from a commercial kitchen. So to do that, I need volume of receptacles to deal with all that waste. So what you can see here is my community compost and worm farm station. So I've actually got two worm farm bathtubs. The first one here, I'm going to walk you through the second one. Then I have 4 compost bins out here, 3 smaller worm farms as well, and I've got another 4 compost bins inside and 2 more worm farms. So it's quite an operation, but the main things I want to walk you through are just the key elements. Generally speaking, your compost is either going to be too wet or it's going to be too dry. Generally, it's too wet because you have too much nitrogen. You have too much green waste or food waste in it. So it becomes wet. When it becomes wet, that pushes the air out, it becomes anaerobic. And the simple clue to that is, it could be once you get to here, you know it's anaerobic because you can smell it, or you lift the lid and get a good, generous gutful of methane-like aromas, which ain't too good. And what's worse is it's no good for the rest of the family. In my case, I can't have this going on here because this is a public thoroughfare and I can't be offending the locals with aroma. So this is the ultimate testing zone because I've got to have it humming. Now, I can show you a few of these bins and give you an idea of what's working and what's not. But the main thing you need to know is that balance. If you, for example, bring... Now, the key thing back up the chain with successful composting, if it's your kitchen scraps, is you need something... Well, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. It can be an old saucepan with a lid that just sits on the kitchen bench. But as long as it's got a lid, because that will stop the vinegar flies. You don't want vinegar flies flying around the kitchen because that'll annoy the rest of the family and it'll annoy you. So you need to be able to close it to stop getting them. If you don't have that situation, what you end up with is this. Have a look at this. You can see those vinegar flies flying around. They're all over the place here because what happened was someone, instead of putting the scraps into the the scrap bin, they put them straight in here, and the vinegar flies with the lid slightly ajar can get in, and then that's it. They're through the joint. But the simplest way to control them, so if you do have a problem with them, basically all you have to do is mix in some soil and plenty of shredded paper or cardboard. It's really that simple. And you want to have a cover. So you definitely want the top of your compost always covered with paper. So I'll show you up here on the worm farm, paper or cardboard, and that prevents the proliferation. So you can see here, not a problem. And what's the joy of this is that the worms love it. If I peel this back a bit, you can see all deep inside there's worms. Oh, there's an elastic band from some vegetables. But the worms come up because they love actually eating the paper. They love bedding in the paper, and it breaks down in a way that it allows oxygen. And when you turn this in to the worm farm, it brings oxygen in. So you'll never have, this doesn't smell at all. And if I only need to dig like a tiny bit, not even, barely below the surface, and look at all the worms in there. It's just loaded with them. Absolutely loaded with worms. So this worm farm is a singer. It's going so well. Look at this. Oh, this is just raw. This is all worm. Absolutely full of worms. So the key is, if you're going to feed your worms, what I do is I peel the surface back. So I peel this surface back like so, with some of the, oh, look at these guys, wow, I love this. So you peel it back, oh, look at that. This is just entirely, that's entirely worms.
Then let it go slowly.
So I peel it back, and then
Can we steal a worm? For a little kid? Will you give us one worm for a little kid to have a look at?
Yeah, sure.
Ah.
No worries.
Thank you.
That's a pleasure.
Oh, that's awesome. Look,
Yeah.
we got a worm.
Hello.
Ooh,
Look
How you
at
going?
all the worms in there, Claude. Eating all the
Look at
eating all
look at
the-
them all.
a worm farm?
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
worm farm. Look how many are there.
That's awesome.
That's a lot of worms. So if you want to, do you live down in the street?
Yeah, we do. We put stuff in here.
Oh, you put stuff in. So that's where your food scraps.
Yeah.
This is where your food scraps end up,
Yeah.
like right in there, and they become wormy. So what you can see, if you have a close look here, you see
How come there's paper
you
on
see
the top?
those little white lines. They're all baby worms.
Wow.
Lots and lots of baby worms. The paper's on the top
Yeah.
because that's like a really nice bedding material that the worms like to eat as carbon, as well as the food scraps. And I'm just explaining to some people in this video here how important it is. And the other reason you have this is to stop the vinegar flies from flying around on
getting
the
in.
top. Yeah, yeah. So now I'm going to feed this up. So what I do with my, so these are my food scraps.
Uh-huh.
So I've peeled that top layer of about 30 centimetres, 50 millimetres, about that much. I peel that back like so. Then this is my kitchen scraps. The other thing to do with your kitchen scraps is, as you put your kitchen scraps in, layer in the cardboard and carbon. Layer it in there. Look at that. I just put it in there,
The worms eat that?
and the worms eat that.
The cardboard.
So then I just tip all those scraps in.
Wow.
And the other really valuable thing to do with your bucket is line it with some paper, because then when you tip it out, it's really quite clean and there's not goop all over it. It's a lot easier. So now all I'm doing is spreading those scraps out. Let me show you, everyone. So I've spread those scraps out, and this is only just one small section of the. So this is about one, not even a third. It's about a quarter. So I've spread them out like that, and then this big layer that I scraped off the top with the worms in it, I just spread that over the top like so. So now all of those food scraps are covered, and then with the paper, I just put the paper back on the top, and there'll be absolutely no smell. And this third, I know exactly how far I've fed to.
How long does it take for them to...
And now that's all done and dusted. So this will take probably 3 weeks for them to eat that up. I'll put some more in there,
And then you take the
and then
soil
some
out?
more in, and then I scrape it out and use it in pots and gardens. Yeah.
What's out on the bottom?
This is the worm juice here. So that fills up, and I just dilute that. Now the key with the worm juice to remember, it's not about volume. If you're getting too much juice, that means there's not enough carbon in there holding it in there. So you want that paper and cardboard in there. The worms break it all down. This ends up a much more potent juice, and I then dilute that about 10-1, and I pour it on the veggies.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Have a good walk.
See you soon.
See you later.
Where do you live?
Yeah, here. Yeah.
Lovely. Love the garden.
Thanks,
Thanks, mate.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
You have to come up and do some gardening with me when we get all the spring veggies in.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Let us know when.
Deal.
What month?
No worries. In about 4 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we'll come up.
Okay. I'll put a notice on the blackboard there, on the little green board.
Up on a weekend.
Okay. See ya. So that's the worm farm. Now, in this case, this compost bin, I want to show you this compost bin. Immediately, when you smell it, when you smell this one, it's got a real ammonia-like aroma, because it didn't get enough carbon in it. It didn't get enough paper or cardboard or dried leaves and so on. So what I need to do is get some of that in there. So I'm just going to put you guys like so. How can I position you so that you can see? Where's the camera? Camera's there. So what I'm going to do, the first thing you need to do, these are really good in any system. I use this in that worm farm bathtub as well. But when I dig into this, you can see how that's too wet. It's dripping out, and it smells. It's really rich. So what I need to do is get air in there. You can see that is dripping. That is too much food scraps and not enough brown material in there. So I will do a mixture of two things. First of all, I'm going to add some soil. Just some good old-fashioned garden soil, which is around the outside here. Oh, that's rich. Whew. So I'm just going to add some garden soil, and that almost immediately starts to deal with the aroma. Now, because this lid was left off, you can see that there is a little bit of, there are some maggots that have formed on the lid. So I'll rinse those off. And we'll go again. But I'm just going to get some more soil and put in there. See, it's about, ultimately it's about that perfect mix. You don't want it so wet like that it's dripping. You don't want it so dry, because once you start to get cockroaches and ants, you know it's too dry. So now I'm going to add some paper, and I'm going to mix that in. Just stir that in, and that's going to help get those soil particles in there, which will break it up, and it'll get the paper in there as well. And you'll be amazed that the smell that's already bearable. When I opened the lid, it wasn't really bearable. It was quite offensive smelling. Now, if you've got cardboard, I find one of the simplest things to do with cardboard, you can rip it up bit by bit dry, but I actually put it in a bucket with some water, and when it's wet like this, you can just, look how easy you can rip it up into small pieces. Like it literally, it almost delaminates as well, like that. So you can mix that in. It's already moist, and you know, I mean, we've all got access to cardboard boxes, and you can just add in this case, because what happened was we had a big garbage bin full of food scraps and there wasn't enough of a mix done. If you put a garbage bin full of food scraps, you need a garbage bin and a half of paper or cardboard or dried grass or dried leaves of carbon. So it's at least 1 to 1.5. That's a rough guide to go off. So already, just doing this, I'll give this a bit of a stir in. You can see that's still pretty moist in there, so I'm going to add more paper, and this will bring it back. So the other thing you can do when you're doing your kitchen, when you're loading up your kitchen bin, as you saw with mine, just layer it with paper as you go. Old envelopes, a bit of newspaper, egg cartons, and don't be afraid to moisten them so that they break up easily. And then mix that in. And then when you bring that little bucket down, it already has the right, almost 50-50, or at least it's a quarter of the way there to those proportions. So you can drop it in, and you're not just dropping an overload into the bin. See, that is, I wish I had smell-o-vision, because that's already not smelling. What I will do here is just I'll add a little bit more cardboard, and I can actually throw these, I'll make these pieces a little bit bigger, and they're going to be like a cover over the top. That's going to deal with with vinegar flies. And then I've got a little bit more paper. And that's our mix. That's our mix. The only thing I realised when I started this video was once you do it on the face camera, you can't actually turn it around. But what I'll do is I'll just make it 2 videos. No, I won't. I'll keep going. It's just simpler. So now that's the top of the bin. I was going to give this lid a bit of a wash. I'll just get rid of all those larvae off there, and it's ready to go. This one was pretty good. The only problem with it, there's no aroma, but the only problem with this one is that it had vinegar flies. So what I want to do here is just give it a turn, and then I'm going to add some shredded paper on the top, and I'll show you another shredded paper technique. Here we go. That's a good viewing point. So I'm just going to get the corkscrew into this, and already there's worms. If I bring that camera a little closer, you'll see that there's quite a few worms in here already, which means that this is not anaerobic. So worms are already making their way into this compost. And when I've stirred it up, you should see how many are coming up to the surface. So all I need to add is some paper to the top. This has got a lot of eggshells in it because the caterers put the eggshells into the buckets as well, but it doesn't matter if they're full, because each time I turn it, those eggshells get crushed a little bit more. So by the time this compost is ready, those eggshells will be nice, small, slow release calcium pieces, which is perfect for any garden bed. If you have a newspaper and you want a nice activity, it's a good one to do with the kids, is hold the paper longitudinally like that. So instead of reading it, go vertical. Take about 10, 12 sheets, if that, and then do the longitudinal rip and a push down, and that separates them. It's very relaxing and a lot of fun, and you end up with these nice strands that will separate when you go like that, and this will cover the surface. And next time I come down later in the week, or when I turn, I can turn these strands clean into the compost. And this is 10 sheets, and look at what it's doing as far as covering the top. I'll show you. Well, you can more or less see from there, but that's covered the top. So there's really no room for the vinegar flies to set up shop. It's the last bit of shredded paper there, and there you go. That's the finish on that one. I'm happy with that one. That's done. So I can put the lid on that. What do we got here? Let me see what else I can show you. I'll show you the fourth bin. 25 minutes, gracious me. I've been going for a long time. I can probably wrap it up at that and just go over the main points. So the main points for your compost, and okay, so first of all, I want to know what you're keeping your compost in. Is it bins Is it bins like this, these cones? Is it worm farms? Is it worm farm bathtubs? Are you worm farming or are you composting? Let me know what you're doing, and then I can answer your questions more specifically. But as far as go-to issues, if it's too dry, you need to add a watering can full of moisture, watering can full of water every time you put or once a week when you put your scraps in. If it's too wet, then what you need to do is what I've shown you. Get some shredded cardboard and shredded paper in there, mix in some soil as well, and that will help aerate what is really just a glug breakdown of food scraps or green material, which pushes the air out and makes the bad smell, encourages the anaerobic bacteria which make the methane and that egg gas aroma. That's gone now. I've got the lid off and I can't smell anything. So you can turn a smelly compost around with just a shovelful of sand and a heap of shredded paper and cardboard. It's as simple as that, to get that cell structure broken up from being a big mass into a nice open structure. Back up the chain, think about layering some paper and cardboard into your container on your bench top as you go. Because if you do that, then you can tip it out in here and only need a little bit of brown material to add to it as you mix it in, because it's already in there. Really simple stuff to start with, but I thought I'd just get you off and going. Let me know with some questions. I really want to see where you're at. Are you doing more open compost systems? If you are, I can give you advice on those. But there's plenty of ways to turn a compost, and I just want to get this conversation started. So yeah, can't wait to hear from you, and keep an eye out for the next video. See ya.